Hello, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Melissa and I am your Pure Romance consultant. Today we are going to be talking about vaginal odor. Something we never ever talk about, and it's probably the most hush-hush thing ever, and it's probably the most uncomfortable thing ever. But we're going to talk about it today. It is so important for me, for you to understand your sexual health and your vaginal health. Ladies, we only have one of these. We can't have a transplant, so we need to make sure that this whole business is under control. So, stay tuned. Thank you so much for still being here. I'm excited to talk to you about this topic. Now, I encourage you, if you have any teenagers in your life or you have any young women in your life, I encourage you to have this conversation. This is something I don't know. When I was in school, it was never taught. And I know when I was growing up, it wasn't a conversation that I was overly keen to have with my mother, but I really wish that we could have. So today, what I'm going to talk about and what I encourage you to share and teach the girls in your life is what's normal for smell, what's normal for discharge, what's not normal for smell, what's not normal for discharge, what is natural pH, and how do we take care of our own vaginal health. We only got one of these, can't transplant it, we're stuck, and I'm sorry. I don't think that ticket is done being punched when I hit a certain age. I hope I'm having orgasms well into my silver years. I'm already there. I've already got a lot of little sparklers happening. So very, very keen on that. Now, let's start with what is normal. Now, vaginal smell, again, should be musky to fleshy, slightly damp. If you're closer to your period in your menstrual cycle, it is also normal to have a slightly metallic scent happening down there. As far as what is normal for discharge, again, this is also something that isn't normally discussed. Normal discharge can range from being slightly milky to clear to having a little bit of a tinge of brown throughout the course of your cycle. That's all normal, okay? Things that are not normal, and I'm just gonna help you to identify it a little bit, are, so if for instance you are having a slight light pink wipe just after the 14th day in your cycle, probably gonna need to go see a doctor and have a blood test because that could mean that you're pregnant. If you're having things like a fishy odor or, one of these, like I'm gonna go through a few different types of smells that you can have. If it's different in any way than what you're used to having, this is something you should talk to your family doctor about, but also to be aware in yourself so that you can try to take care of things a little bit from home. The first one I'm going to talk to you about is one called bacterial vaginosis. Bacterial vaginosis typically identifies as having a very fishy odor. It may or may not have some slight burning or slight itching, but there never should be extreme. It should never ever be that way, and it should never ever have pain associated with it. Bacterial vaginosis can have a bit of a milky discharge, but also even with the discharge, you feel very, very dry on the inside, okay? So there's bacterial vaginosis, usually identifies as having a fishy smell, and it's commonly sort of self-misdiagnosed a little bit with yeast infections. More oftentimes than not, if you're having any type of milky discharge, it's probably bacterial vaginosis. Now, a yeast infection, how you can tell if you're having a yeast infection, the discharge or the odor that you're having is more of like a beer, a sweet, yeasty, could be like a cookie smell. But that one is accompanied with pretty strong itching, some burning, some swelling, but the discharge, the signature is that it's more of a cottage cheese, pasty type texture. Again, any of these things that I'm talking to you about, if you're having any of these issues, then that is something that you should be talking to your family physician about. If you are having much stronger odors or you're having intense pain, intense burning, anything intense, that could be something like an STI or an STD, in which case then it is imperative that you listen to your body at the very, very first sign and go see your doctor for an STD test. Okay, it could be things like chlamydia, could be gonorrhea, could be any number of things, but you know, if it's ever out of the ordinary, please go and get yourself tested because you are going to need some help there. What causes these types of conditions? Okay, yeast infections, bacterial vaginosis, these are common side effects to douching. It's common side effects to sexual intercourse. It's common side effects if you're using alternate types of lubricant, if you're using perfumes, perfume soaps around that area. All of those things affect the internal pH balance of our vagina. Now, our vagina is this wonderful, magical organ that self-cleans. It maintains a neutral pH so that it can clean and shed anything that comes in that's not supposed to be there. So things like semen, things like any of the material that happens on the outside of the vaginal opening, could be fecal, could be urine. Okay, so it helps to make sure that none of those nasties get in. Male genitalia is not typically the cleanest place. Guys are not very, very clean down there. Now, there are exceptions to the rule, but if ever you're noticing any types of funky smells happening after sex, it usually means that your body is processing what went up in there and that the pH balance is off. So what can cause other things with pH balance? So sex is one. Also, the lubricants that we choose can be a big contributing factor. So common lubes that people use are ones that contain silicone, that contain other phthalates or other, like I've got a bottle of glycerins and stuff. Or if you're one that uses an alternative medicine type approach, things like if you cook with it, it should not be in your vajayjay. It just should not be there. So if you're using coconut oil, or another one I've heard a lot of is olive oil, those are very acidic on their own. And when you're introducing something that's very, very acidic into the vagina, it changes the pH. It can cause an overgrowth of something that is unfriendly that's in there. Also, when you're using those types of oil-based lubricants, what happens is it applies a coating all over the inside of your vaginal wall and it sticks. And anything that has happened or that is on the fleshy side of that oil, because it's sort of trapped there, it keeps all those little nasties in the fold, and then it can cause future infections. So if you've been using these things in the past and you haven't had an issue, that's great. But as you're older and as your body's pH changes, that is something that you should consider because it can be a contributing factor. Also, vaginal dryness can cause odors. Douching too much causes odors. So what are some things that you can do to help these things? Now, I'm a pure romance consultant, so I am going to put in my own personal plugs here. But the first thing is making sure for proper hygiene that you are using a pH balanced soap. Now, Pure Romance has a beautiful line of soaps. You can have them in lightly fragranced or completely unscented if you are having a trouble spell. Being that they're pH balanced, they also have ingredients in it that helps to soothe the skin, highly moisturizing, which is also important. But you should never, regardless of the type of soap that you're using, ever use a soap on the inside of your vagina. Soap should always remain on the outside, and it is recommended to use a washcloth to make sure that the area is properly cleaned. The next thing is wiping, making sure that you wipe from front to back so that nothing is transferred in any way across that opening again, because it is so sensitive. I mentioned it a little bit about lubricant. Again, a really good plug for what we have here is called Just Like Me. This is a water-based lubricant. There is no nasties inside of this product. There's no chemicals inside of this product. It is specifically designed for our delicate natural flora so that, number one, we are protecting the skin on the inside by creating a barrier from friction, creating micro tears, and that creates scar tissue. Means less sensitivity later on in life to enjoy your sex life. But also this gently works its way out of the body without affecting the pH. This does have a flavored option in a sugar glazed donut. They are not using sugars, so anything that has sugars in it can cause yeast infections. So these are really, really great options. And what's awesome about this is you can use, this is gentle enough that you can use it every single day. You put a couple of pumps in, you put it on the inside of the vagina after you've properly washed with our pH balanced soap. And that will help you every single day to combat the nasties that happen, that get in there, and also keeps your pH where it should be. So this is safe enough to use daily. What is nice about the Just Like Me is that it is re-wetting. So if you do want to have some sexual play later, as soon as your own natural moistures start to build up, it reactivates it, and it has a really great penetrative barrier between you and your partner. Now, multiple partners can be a contributing factor to vaginal odor. If you have the same partner, then that's not necessarily an issue, but definitely his hygiene is extremely important as well. So I think I've covered over everything. I know this is a pretty heavy topic and there's a lot of information, but I'm hoping that I was able to give you something of value. Please, if you like the content, please select like. Please follow me by hitting subscribe and share. I love to get my message out to more audiences, and thank you so much for being a member of my group. Bye for now.